The hunt begins. The alien forest was quiet, too quiet. The air carried the smell of strange flowers, glowing faintly under the two moons. Every tree stood tall and twisted, their branches sharp like claws. Only the soft sound of wind moved through. The leaves. It was the perfect place for hunters. Solara, the best warrior of the Zalira tribe, moved silently through the forest. Her skin was marked with silver paint, her bow glowing with faint blue light. She was known by one title, the arrow that never missed. No prey ever escaped her aim. No enemy survived her strike. To her tribe, she was more than a hunter. She was proof that the gods still guided them. Her steps made no sound as she walked. Her golden eyes followed the path of a strange trail. The marks were heavy, uneven. Whoever left them was no native beast. The prints were wrong, too straight, too clumsy, too human. She lifted her hand, signaling the other hunters to stop. Behind her, 6 warriors froze. Their breathing slowed. They knew that when Solara raised her bow, something was about to die. She crouched, touching the ground. The soil was warm, disturbed recently. Whatever walked here had passed only minutes ago. She drew an arrow, its silver tip glowing softly. The weapon hummed with deadly energy. Solara whispered in her language. The hunt begins. In the shadows of the forest, the sound of breaking twigs echoed. The hunters looked at one another, waiting for Solara's command. Then she saw him. The figure moved slowly between the trees, taller and broader than any Zaliran. His clothes were rough, his boots muddy. His hands carried a strange weapon, not a bow, not a spear, but something alien. The hunters whispered among themselves. But Solara raised her hand for silence. Her eyes narrowed, her heart steady. She pulled back her bowstring. The hum of energy grew louder. The arrow pointed directly at the stranger's chest. In her mind, the kill was already decided. He would fall like all the others. Her legend would remain unbroken. But then, the human spoke. His voice was strange, deep, carrying confidence instead of fear. If you release that arrow, it will be the last mistake you ever make. Solara froze. Never before had prey spoken to her like this. Never before had prey stood tall without fear. For a moment, her hand hesitated, but pride ruled her heart. She released the arrow. The forest lit up as the shaft flew, faster than lightning, sharper than any blade. It should have ended the hunt. Instantly, yet something impossible happened. The human moved. His arm swung up with his weapon. In a flash, he caught the arrow with a burst of light, twisting it with unnatural speed. Before Solara could even breathe, he sent it flying back. The arrow passed by her cheek, cutting a strand of her hair. It struck the tree behind her with a violent crack. The trunk shook, bark exploded. The hunters gasped, for the first time in her life. Solara's arrow had missed. Silence fell on the forest. Every Zaliran hunter stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. The arrow that never missed had been defeated, not by a beast, not by a spirit, but by a human. Solara's heart pounded. Her chest rose and fell as if the air had grown heavier. Fear was new to her. She had faced monsters twice her size, had killed with eyes closed, but now she felt something sharp, something she had never known. The taste of doubt. The human lowered his weapon. His eyes were calm. His face carried no fear. He simply said, "Now it is my turn to hunt." The words struck her harder than any arrow. She wanted to draw again, to fire once more. But her fingers trembled. She had never trembled before. Around her, her tribe whispered, their voices filled with unease. Their champion had failed. The moons above seemed colder, the shadows darker. Something had shifted. Solara knew the forest was no longer hers. The legend she carried was broken, but in her heart, something else stirred. If this human could return her arrow, if he could move faster than her eyes could follow, then perhaps he was not prey. Perhaps he was something greater. Something she was meant to face. The hunt was no longer about honor. No longer about prey and predator. It was about destiny. And for the first time, Solara was not sure if she was the hunter or the hunted. Asterisk, the human's challenge. The forest still carried the echo of silence after the broken arrow. Solara stood. Frozen, her bow lowered but not forgotten. Her pride burned inside her chest. She wanted to believe it was only luck, that the human had survived by chance, but deep in her heart, she knew it was no accident. The other hunters whispered among themselves. "It cannot be," one said. "Her arrows never miss." Another muttered. They looked at Solara with fear and doubt. For years they had trusted her to lead the hunt, and now the legend was shaken. The human stepped forward. His boots pressed the soft soil. His weapon held with ease. His eyes never left Solara. They were sharp, steady, and filled with something she did not recognize. It was not fear, not rage. It was challenge. "Who are you?" Solara demanded. Her voice was firm, though her chest still trembled. "What kind of creature returns thee?" "Hunter's arrow." The human tilted his head slightly. His lips curved in the smallest of smiles. "My name does not matter," he said. "What matters is that you are not the only one who can strike true." The words cut her pride deeper than any wound. Solara's fingers tightened on her bowstring. She wanted to fire again, to prove herself. But she hesitated. Her people were watching. The weight of their faith pressed against her shoulders. The human raised his weapon. It was not like her bow. It was built from metal and strange light, something she had never seen before. He pulled a bolt of energy and loaded it like an arrow. The air hummed with power. "You hunt me," he said. "Now I hunt you." The warriors behind Solara stepped back, their eyes wide. They had never seen such a weapon. Some wanted to flee, but none dared to leave without her command. Solara lifted her chin, refusing to show fear. "Then shoot," she said, "and let the forest decide who is hunter and who is prey." The human did not fire, he only stared. His silence was heavier than his weapon. After a long pause, he lowered the bow of light and said, "Not today." Confusion filled the hunters. Solara frowned. Her pride demanded battle, but his refusal unsettled her. "Why?" she asked sharply. "Why do you not fight?" The human stepped closer. His presence seemed larger than his size. His voice calm but commanding. "Because I did not come to kill you," he said. "I came to test you." Solara's eyes narrowed. "Test me," she repeated. "For what purpose?" The human pointed toward the forest beyond, his hand firm and steady. "There are dangers coming that even your arrows cannot stop," he said. "And when they arrive, you will need me, just as I will need you." The words hung in the air, heavy and unbelievable. Solara wanted to laugh, to dismiss him, but something in his voice, in his calmness, made her pause. She had faced countless enemies, and all had looked at her with fear or hatred. But this human looked at her as if she was his equal. Her pride fought against the thought, but her instincts whispered otherwise. She lowered her bow slowly. "You speak boldly for prey," she said. "But if you think you can walk into Zalira, lands without paying in blood, you are mistaken." The human smirked. Not with arrogance, but with certainty. "I already paid," he said. "I returned your arrow. I broke your legend. That was the price." Solara's chest tightened. Every word reminded her of the arrow in the tree behind her. The wound to her pride was deeper than any scar. Yet there was a strange fire in her heart. She wanted to face him again, not to destroy him, but to understand him. The other hunters waited for her command. They were afraid, but they would follow her. Solara raised her hand. "Return to the tribe," she ordered. "I will finish this hunt alone." The warriors hesitated, but obeyed. One by one they melted back into the trees, leaving Solara and the human alone. The night grew colder, the silence heavier. The human looked at her with steady eyes. "You want answers," he said. "Then follow me." Solara's grip on her bow tightened. Part of her wanted to strike him down, end this strange encounter. But another part of her burned with curiosity. Her arrows never missed, yet he had turned them against her. He was different from anything she had known. She stepped forward, her voice low. "If this is a trick, if you lead me into a trap, I will make sure your death is slow." The human nodded without fear. "Good." he said simply. That is the spirit of a true warrior. Together they walked deeper into the forest. Two hunters, once enemies, now bound by a challenge greater than either could yet understand. The hunt was far from over, but its meaning had already changed. Shadows of alliance, the forest grew darker as Solara followed the human. The two moons were hidden behind thick clouds, and only the faint glow of strange plants lit their path. Each step was heavy with silence. Her bow was ready, her senses sharp. She trusted nothing, not even the sound of her own breathing. The human walked ahead with calm steps, his shoulders straight, his weapon slung across his back. He did not move like prey, nor like predator. He moved with purpose, as if every tree and shadow belonged to him. That unsettled Solara more than any beast could. Finally, she broke the silence. You speak of dangers that even my arrows cannot stop, she said. Show me what you mean, or I end this game now. The human slowed, turning his head slightly. His eyes caught the glow of the plants, sharp and steady. You will see soon. Enough, he answered. But understand this, what hunts in this forest is not like me, nor like you. It is something greater, something that will burn your tribe to ashes if you stand alone. Solara's grip on her bow tightened. Pride told her to reject his words, but instinct told her to listen. She had hunted creatures that could crush bone with a single strike. Yet his voice carried a truth she could not ignore. They reached a clearing. The air was heavy, the ground scarred. Trees were torn apart, their trunks blackened as if fire had consumed them. Yet no fire remained, only silence and the smell of something rotten. Solara knelt, touching the soil. It was cold, colder than death itself. What did this? She whispered. The human pointed toward the sky. Not what, he said. Who before she could ask? A sound broke the silence. A sharp metallic cry that did not belong to beast or bird. Solara sprang to her feet, her bow raised. From the shadows, a figure emerged, not flesh, not spirit, but machine. Its body was covered in black metal, its eyes burning red like coals. The creature stepped forward, its movements sharp and unnatural. The ground cracked under its weight. Solara fired without hesitation. The arrow sang through the air, glowing with deadly energy. It struck the creature's chest and exploded in a flash of light. When the smoke cleared, the machine still stood. The arrow had left a dent, nothing more. Solara's heart pounded. She had never seen her weapon fail twice. The human stepped forward. Calmly, drawing his weapon of light, he fired a single bolt. It struck the machine's head, sparks burst out, and the creature collapsed with a metallic scream. Solara stared. Her pride burned, but her mind raced. How? She demanded. How did your weapon do what mine could not? The human turned to her, his face calm but serious. Because these enemies are not of flesh. They are machines, built for war, built to erase. Arrows of bone and wood cannot break them. Only weapons like mine can. Her people had legends of spirits made from stone and fire, but never of machines. She lowered her bow slightly, her voice quiet but sharp. If what you say is true, then why come to me? Why test me? The human walked closer, his shadow long under the glowing plants. Because you are a warrior who never misses, he said. And even though I broke your arrow, I know your spirit is stronger than any weapon. I do not need your bow, Solara. I need you. The words struck deeper than she expected. For years, she had carried pride as her shield, but now, for the first time, someone spoke to her not as legend, but as equal. Before she could answer, the ground shook. More cries echoed from the shadows. Metal shapes moved between the trees, red eyes flickering like fireflies. There were too many. Solara raised her bow, her pride demanding battle. But the human caught her arm, his voice firm. Not here, not now. If we fight them all, we die. She wanted to pull away, but her instincts screamed the same. Reluctantly, she nodded. Together they ran into the deeper forest, the cries of the machines chasing behind. Branches whipped past her face, her legs carrying her faster than ever. The human kept pace, his steps steady. His breathing calm, she glanced at him once. And for the first time, she did not see prey. She did not see rival. She saw someone who ran beside her as if they had hunted together all their lives. At last, they reached the mouth of a hidden cave. The human motioned her inside. She hesitated, but followed. The cries of machines echoed outside, then faded into silence. Inside the cave, the air was damp and cold. The walls glowed faintly with minerals. Solara leaned against the stone, catching her breath. Her eyes turned to the human. "If these machines are what you speak of, then the Zalira tribe is in danger." The human nodded, his face grim. "Not only your tribe," he said. "This world itself. They will not stop until nothing remains." Solara's chest rose and fell. The fire of pride still burned in her, but now it burned beside something else, something she had never felt before: uncertainty. The human stepped closer, his voice calm but unyielding. "You can keep fighting me, or you can stand with me. The choice is yours, Hunter." Her golden eyes met his. In them she saw no fear, no weakness, only resolve. She lowered her bow slowly. "For now," she said, "I will stand with you." The words echoed in the cave, not as surrender, but as the birth of something new. Two hunters, once enemies, now bound by a shadow greater than either could face alone. The first alliance battle. The cave walls glowed faintly, casting pale light on Solara and the human. For a long moment they only listened. The forest outside was alive with the sound of metal cries, sharp and cold. The machines were searching, their red eyes burning through the night. Solara's bow was ready, her pride demanding she strike. But the human's calm voice cut through the tension. "If we fight here, we are cornered," he said. "They will bury us under stone and fire." Her jaw tightened. "Running is not the way of hunters," she replied. But even as she spoke, she knew his words carried truth. These were not beasts of flesh. They were an army of steel, and every sound they made carried the weight of war. The human moved deeper into the cave, running his hand along the wall until he found a hidden tunnel. "This path will lead us to higher ground," he said. "From there, we choose the place of battle, not them." Solara followed reluctantly. Her steps were silent, but her thoughts loud. She had spent her life believing her arrows were enough, that her skill was beyond question, yet in only a single night, the human had broken her pride and shown her enemies that could not be defeated by arrows alone. At last, they emerged from the tunnel into the high cliffs that overlooked the valley. The moons broke through the clouds, bathing the land in silver light. Below, the machines moved in formation, dozens of them, their eyes glowing like rivers of fire. Solara drew in a sharp breath. "So many," she whispered. Her tribe had warriors, but not enough to face this storm. For the first time, fear whispered in her chest, not for herself, but for her people. The human stood tall beside her, his weapon glowing faintly with power. "This is only a scouting force," he said. "The main army has not yet arrived." Her head snapped toward him. "If this is a scout, then the world is already lost." But he shook his head. "Not if we fight smart," he said. "Not if we fight together." The word "together" stung her pride, yet also gave her strength. She had been raised to lead alone, to fight alone, yet standing on that cliff, with the human's calm gaze fixed on the enemy below, she felt the strange weight of something new: trust. The machines began to climb, their limbs pierced stone, their movements sharp and tireless. Solara notched an arrow, her bowstring humming. The human loaded his weapon, energy crackling at its core. "On my mark," he said, "we strike." Solara almost laughed. "You dare to command me," she whispered. But then she saw his eyes focused, unshaken. He was not claiming command. He was sharing it. For reasons she did not understand, she nodded. The first machine reached the ledge. Solara fired. The arrow struck its glowing eye, the metal skull shattering in a burst of sparks. Another climbed over the edge, but before it could move, the human's shot tore through its chest, sending it falling into the valley below. The battle erupted. Machines climbed like a tide. Their claws scraping against stone, Solara and the human moved in perfect rhythm. Her arrows struck joints and weak points with unerring precision. His weapon blasted through armor with raw power. For the first time their skills did not clash. They completed one another. Still, the enemy was endless. For every machine that fell, two more climbed. Solara's chest burned with effort, her arms aching from the pull of her bow. The human's weapon glowed hotter with each shot, its core trembling under strain. Too many, Solara hissed, sweat running down her brow. Hold, the human answered. His voice steady, his eyes locked on the valley below. Then he raised his free hand. Pressing a small device against the ground, Solara's eyes widened. As the cliffs below exploded in a line of fire, the rock shattered, collapsing in a thunder of stone. Dozens of machines tumbled into the abyss, their red eyes fading into darkness. The ground shook, dust rising into the night air. When it cleared, silence returned. The valley below was broken, littered with the wreckage of steel. Solara lowered her bow slowly, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. She turned to the human, her voice sharp. You had this weapon all along, and yet you let me fight with arrows. He met her gaze calmly. I needed to see if you would stand beside me, not as legend, not as pride, but as warrior. His words struck deeper than any wound. She wanted to argue, to shout, but her heart betrayed her, for in the fire of battle, she had felt something she never knew before. Fighting not alone, but together. She turned away, staring at the ruined valley, her voice low. Do not think this means I trust you fully. The human smiled faintly, his weapon resting against his shoulder. I do not need your trust yet, he said. I only need your arrows. The night wind blew cold, carrying with it the faint echoes of more machines. Solara's golden eyes narrowed. She knew the war was only beginning, but for the first time, she was not sure if she wanted to fight it alone. Together, they stood on the cliff, hunters bound not by blood or tribe, but by necessity. The first alliance had been forged, not with words, but with battle. And though the night was quiet now, both knew the storm had only just begun. The valley lay silent after the cliff's collapse. Broken metal scattered across the rocks. Solara's bow rested at her side, her breath heavy. The human stood beside her, weapon still glowing faintly. For a moment, the world seemed still, but both knew the silence was only a pause, not an end. Solara's golden eyes scanned the horizon. Her voice was low but sharp. If this was only a scouting force, then the true army is already on its way. The human nodded, his gaze steady. They will come in waves, he said, not just from the forest, but from the skies, from the ground. They were built for war that never ends. His words weighed heavily on her. She had fought countless battles, faced beasts larger than homes, but the machines were different. They felt endless, tireless, unbroken by fear or pain. Solara clenched her bow. Then we must warn the tribe. The human's eyes hardened. If you warn them now, they will not believe you. They will see me as intruder. They will see these machines as myth. They will waste time while the storm gathers. Solara's jaw tightened. Her pride rebelled, but she knew he was right. Her people trusted her skill, but not her words alone. She needed proof. The human stepped closer, his voice calm but unyielding. There is a base, hidden in the mountains to the north. That is where the machines come from. If we strike there first, we weaken their storm. We show your people the truth. Solara turned sharply. You want me to leave my tribe undefended? They are already undefended, he replied. But if we strike at the heart, we give them a chance to survive. Her heart burned with conflict. For years she had carried the weight of her tribe on her shoulders. To abandon them felt like betrayal, yet in her core, she knew he was right. If they waited, the machines would come in numbers too great to resist. At last she nodded. Then, lead me to this base, and may the stars curse you if this is a trick. The human smirked faintly. Not in mockery, but in grim respect. You will see soon enough. They moved through the forest as dawn broke. The first rays of light pierced the trees, casting long shadows. The land bore scars, broken trunks, burned soil, strange metallic. Fragments buried in the dirt. Solara touched one piece, sharp and cold. Her arrows had never pierced such metal, but she carried it as reminder. For hours they traveled, silent but alert. Every sound in the forest carried weight. At last they reached a ridge, and what lay beyond stole Solara's breath. Below them stretched a black field, filled with machines standing in rows. Their bodies gleamed like steel under the rising sun. Dozens, hundreds, maybe more. In the center rose a tower of black metal, pulsing with red light. Solara's chest tightened. "This is no base," she whispered. "This is an army." The human's eyes narrowed. "And it grows larger every day." Her pride wanted to deny it, but her eyes could not. The storm he spoke of was real, and it was already here. The human crouched low, pulling a small device from his belt. "We cannot fight them head on," he said. "But we can cut their heart. If we destroy the tower, we slow their command. They will falter. Your tribe will gain time." Solara studied him. "And what of you?" she asked. "You fight as if this is not your first war against them." His gaze turned distant, as if seeing a battlefield far away. "It is not," he said quietly. "My world faced them once. We lost." The words struck her harder than any blow. Her pride faltered, but her spirit hardened. If even his world had fallen, then this fight was larger than she imagined. Yet she would not bow to fear, not now. She drew an arrow, the silver tip glowing in the morning light. "Then let us strike their heart before their storm strikes us." The human smiled faintly. "Good," he said. "We move at nightfall." As the sun rose higher, Solara stood on the ridge, her bow ready, her spirit burning. For the first time, she was not only fighting for pride, not only for her legend, she was fighting for survival, for her tribe, for a future that might already be slipping away. The human stood beside her, steady as stone, his voice calm but heavy. "The storm of war is here, Hunter," he said, "and from this moment, we fight it together." Solara did not answer. She only looked at the endless army below, her golden eyes filled with fire. The storm was coming, and she would meet it with arrow and blood. For the first time in her life, her path was no longer clear, but her spirit had never been stronger. Night fell heavy over the valley. The machines stood silent in rows, their red eyes dimmed but not asleep. The black tower in the center pulsed with steady light, each beat like the thrum of a war drum. Solara crouched on the ridge, her bow tight in her hands. The human knelt beside her, checking his weapon and the small devices he carried. "This is madness," Solara whispered. "Two against an army." The human's voice was steady, almost calm. "We are not here to fight the army. We are here to strike the tower, break its core. And their lines will fall into chaos." Her pride wanted to argue, but her spirit knew there was no other choice. If the storm was not broken here, it would swallow her people whole. She nodded once, sharp and final. "Then let us end it." They moved down the ridge like shadows. The ground was cold, the soil scarred with strange black veins that pulsed faintly. Solara's heart beat faster with every step. Every arrow she carried felt heavier than before. For the first time in her life, she did not know if her aim would matter. The human led the way, his movements careful but confident. He avoided the paths of patrol machines, moving only when their eyes turned away. Solara followed, silent as the huntress she was trained to be. Their breaths were slow, their steps measured. At last they reached the base of the tower. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, shifting as though alive. Strange symbols pulsed across its skin, glowing with deep crimson light. The sound of energy thrummed inside it, like a heart that was not meant to beat. Solara raised her bow. "One arrow to the core," she whispered. "And this nightmare ends." The human shook his head. "No, your arrows will scratch the surface, but they will not pierce its heart. Only this." He held up a device. a small black sphere that pulsed faintly with blue light. A charge, strong enough to tear its core apart. She frowned. Then place it and be done. His eyes met hers, steady and serious. Once I arm it, the machines will know. They will come, all of them, and they will not stop. Her chest tightened. The weight of his words pressed deep. Then we buy enough time for it to destroy them. She said firmly, we stand until it is done. He gave a short nod, respect flickering in his eyes. Together they moved to the tower's base. The human placed the sphere against the shifting metal, pressing symbols in sequence. The device hummed, glowing brighter. Solara's golden eyes scanned the shadows, her bow drawn. The first machine appeared from the dark, its red eyes locking onto them. It gave a sharp, metallic cry, and the ground shook as dozens more stirred. Solara fired instantly, her arrow striking its eye. Sparks burst, the machine collapsed, but the cry had already awakened the army. Red eyes lit the valley like rivers of fire. The machines moved as one, their steps thunderous. Solara's bow sang, arrow after arrow flying, each found its mark. Joints, eyes, weak points. The human stood beside her, his weapon blasting through steel. Every shot was thunder, every strike was fire. But still they came. Climbing, crawling, swarming, the night burned with their red glow. Solara's chest ached, her arms heavy, but her spirit burned brighter. She fought like a storm, her arrows falling faster than rain. Yet for every machine she felled, more rose. From the dark, the human shouted over the chaos. The charge is nearly armed, hold them back. Solara gritted her teeth, sweat on her brow. She fired again, her arrow piercing two at once. She moved like shadow, like flame. Every strike was flawless, but the tide was endless. At last the human shouted, it's done. 30 breaths until it detonates. Solara's heart pounded. She looked at the endless swarm closing in. Their claws struck stone, their eyes burned brighter. The ground itself seemed to tremble with their rage. Then we stand, she growled. Her bow blazed with light. She fired into the crowd, each shot exploding with power. The human stood firm, his weapon roaring, their backs against the tower, their bodies burning with exhaustion. Yet neither stepped back, neither yielded. The machines swarmed closer. Some leapt onto the tower itself, their claws digging into the shifting metal. Solara cut them down, arrow after arrow. Her arms shook, but her spirit screamed defiance. The human slammed another device into the ground, fire erupting in a circle around them. But still the enemy advanced. 20 breaths, 15, 10. The world narrowed to fire and steel, to the sound of her bowstring, to the thunder of his weapon. They fought not as rivals, not as strangers, but as one. 5 breaths, 4, 3. The machines lunged all at once. A tide of metal and claws. Solara loosed her last arrow. The human fired his last bolt. And then, the tower screamed. A surge of blue light burst from the core. Fire and energy tore through the valley. The machines convulsed, their eyes flickering. Their bodies cracked, shattered, fell silent. The blast hurled Solara and the human back into the dirt. The ground shook, the air burned. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Solara coughed, her chest aching. Her bow cracked but still in her grip. She lifted her eyes. The valley below was filled with wreckage. Broken machines scattered like corpses. The tower stood shattered, its light gone. Beside her, the human pushed himself up, his face pale but calm. He looked at her, his voice quiet but steady. We won the first battle. Solara's golden eyes narrowed, her voice rough but unbroken. Then let the storm send its next. The final stand. The valley lay in ruins. The shattered tower no longer pulsed with red light, its body broken and silent. Dead machines covered the ground like fallen trees, their glowing eyes dim forever. Solara stood on the cliff edge, her bow cracked but still in her grip. Her chest rose and fell, each breath heavy with exhaustion. Beside her, the human sat on a stone, his weapon scorched from battle. His face was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of a man who had seen too many wars. He looked at Solara with quiet respect. "You fought like fire," he said. "Without you, this tower would still stand." Her pride stirred, but she did not answer with arrogance. Instead, she looked down at the endless wreckage and whispered, "This was only one tower. If there are more, then this battle was nothing but a warning." The human nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "There are more," he said. "Many more. They spread like roots across worlds, feeding on everything, destroying until nothing remains." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Then this was not a victory." He shook his head slowly. "No, this was survival. But survival is the first step to victory." The words lingered in her heart. For years she had believed victory was certain whenever she raised her bow. Now she understood that victory was not a single arrow, but a storm of battles, some won, some lost. The wind howled across the valley, carrying with it the scent of smoke and ash. Solara turned toward the forest where her tribe lived. "They will see the sky burn tonight," she said. "They will know something has changed." "They must prepare," the human replied. "The storm has only begun, and when it comes again, it will not give warning." She studied him, the strange warrior who had broken her pride, who had stood beside her when the machines swarmed like endless tide. She remembered the moment her arrow was turned back, the moment her legend cracked. She should have hated him, but instead she felt something different: respect. Solara lowered her bow slowly. "You speak as if you will stay." He looked at her, his eyes steady. "I will, until the storm ends or I fall, whatever comes first." The silence stretched between them, heavy but not unwelcome. For the first time, Solara did not see him as prey or rival. She saw him as a warrior bound to her path. From the distance came a low rumble, not thunder, not earth, but something unnatural. Solara's hand gripped her bow, her instincts sharp. The human stood, his weapon ready. They both looked at the horizon, where faint red lights flickered once more. Solara's chest tightened. "Already." The human's voice was calm but hard. "They do not stop. They never stop. That is why we fight, not for one victory, but for every breath, every moment bought." Her pride no longer argued. Her spirit understood. She stepped beside him, her golden eyes burning with fire. "Then we fight, not as rivals, not as strangers, but as one." The human gave a faint smile. "As one," he said. The rumble grew louder. The horizon burned with red. The machines were coming again. Endless, tireless. But Solara did not tremble. Her bow was ready, her spirit unbroken. She no longer carried the weight of being the arrow that never missed. That legend was gone, and in its place stood something greater. Beside her stood a human who had faced storms before, a man who had returned her arrow and shown her that pride alone could not save a world. Together they stood on the broken cliff, two warriors bound by fire and blood. The storm rose again, its shadow stretching across the land. Solara drew her arrow. The human raised his weapon. Their eyes locked for only a moment, a silent vow between them. And when the machines roared and the ground shook, they charged forward together, not as prey and predator, not as hunter and hunted, but as allies, as fire and steel. The final stand had begun.